What's up guys, Max here. Some more information has popped up over the past few days that I think really needs to be discussed, especially in concern to the future of Capcom fighting games. Ayano, the producer of Street Fighter IV, has recently gone on record saying that we're going to have to wait quite some time for a future iteration of Street Fighter to actually become available. He even dropped a date on us, and that date is 2018.
What the fuck?
Now this is shocking, like almost to the point of which it's, what are you guys even doing? I'm really confused right now as far as what Capcom's actually working on, as far as like future projects. Is it all going to be deep down on the next generation in Strider, I guess? I don't know, I'm a little confused, and what I'm also really wanted to talk about with this video is a new Dark Age. Dark Ages of fighting games have also been brought up in many times before. A lot of people, when it comes to the FGC, talk about the Dark Age of fighting games being the mid-2000s, from like 2002, 2003, all the way up until 2008 was the Dark Age of fighting games. This wasn't the Dark Age of fighting games in general, quote-unquote. It was the Dark Age of Capcom fighters. Capcom started off by making Capcom vs. SNK 2 in 2001, and then past that they made Capcom Fighting Jam a couple of years later, and Capcom Fighting Jam was not good. It wasn't a terrible game by any means, but the resurrection of old sprites and Morrigan sprite and old Darkstalker stuff and system mechanics that seemed kind of weird in comparison to some previous fighting games that did it really well, like Capcom vs. SNK 2. The game was not the best. I might actually do some coverage on Fighting Jam at some point on this channel, but regardless, it left a very big gap between Capcom fighting. From that point forward, there wasn't any Capcom fighting games for a really long time, and a lot of people even proclaimed for many years that Street Fighter is dead. There's no market anymore for fighting games, that it is the unmarketable genre. And then of course Street Fighter 4 happened. Now here's the thing, the time frame in between that was around 2004 when Capcom Fighting Jam came out on consoles. Street Fighter 4 came out around 2008, even though we knew about it back in 2007. So that's like a 4, we can technically say like a 5-year gap in a way, depending on which versions of the game you want to talk about. Now if we take into consideration what Ayano said earlier about 2018 being the next presumable date that a Street Fighter could be worked on, holy hell man, that is a 4-year gap once again in between fighting games, which will once again connotate a dark age of Capcom fighters. Now if you guys are like me, I was really into Capcom fighting games for that entire period of time. I played religiously Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, I played Capcom vs. SNK 2, I played Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and even Super Turbo to an extent, because those were still the huge hot arcade fighters for like 10 years. Like those ones remained for so long, it's absolutely crazy. But nowadays with home console and release, people really do demand new things quick, and I think that especially getting new fighting games out there is the stuff that you have to get people excited about. Holding tournaments and holding like these big community events is a really good thing for fighting games, and that's one way to get small people in and like eventually gather this scene up and grow and grow and grow. But we really need new fighting games to expand, to get like an explosion of people that would actually get into the FGC or into fighting games in general, which is what I really care about, that just more people are playing this stuff. And it's a little worrisome that Capcom is going to leave a 4 to perhaps 5-year gap in their development life cycle that will leave fighting games potentially devoid. Because I'm thinking, if we're not going to see an update to the Street Fighter series, the most successful and probably the most like money hoarding version of any of the fighting games that Capcom has, Street Fighter is it. And the fact that they're going to stay away from that for that long, well, okay, I guess, but we've already been playing Street Fighter 4 since 2008. It's been 5 years, and it will have been 6 years by the time we get to 2014 with the final version of Ultra Street Fighter 4. So I don't know, man. I'm very doubtful that there will be an update to Marvel anytime soon based off this information. I'm very doubtful there'll be an update to Street Fighter Cross Tekken with this information anytime soon. What I do hope is that they potentially go back and try to resurrect some old franchises like Capcom vs. SNK 2. If there's a new iteration to Capcom vs. SNK, like, I think everybody wants that, but making that project a possibility is probably a huge pain in the ass after realizing what happened with Street Fighter Cross Tekken. You have to look at the reality of things. Everybody wants this stuff, or it seems like everybody wants this stuff, but when it comes to CVS2, and this issue has come up fairly recently with the new Killer Instinct, A lot of people that weren't into fighting games before 2009, you know, when Street Fighter 4 was like a big thing in 2008, when those games made a huge like resurgence, people just don't know about CVS2. They don't really know about Third Strike. They don't really know about Killer Instinct, or these games that existed in huge partitions way back in the day. They were segmented in a time frame where they were hugely popular. The reason Street Fighter remained so successful is that there were so many iterations of Street Fighter throughout the years with Street Fighter characters here and there that a 4-year gap didn't seem like that much. But if you include like 10 years for CVS2, you know, like 15 to 18 years for Killer Instinct, and even more for other fighting games, you kind of have this huge disconnect of people that don't even understand what this stuff is about, and you're essentially relying on old dudes like myself that have played fighting games way back in the day in the 90s and stuff like that to resurrect the franchise. So that's what I'm a little worried about, that Capcom is getting kind of very wary about what they're doing with their franchises, about very wary that if we don't sell 3 million units or 2 million units or even 1 million units of this fighting game, then it's just not even worth it at this point. There is some light on the horizon. Namco is still doing stuff with Tekken versus Street Fighter. I swear to God, I hope they don't call it that. I hope it's something completely different, but it is something, and I'm actually looking forward to see how the Tekken guys take Street Fighter characters. Especially and hoping if it is something different than the Tekken 6 engine. For me personally, I just didn't like the Tekken 6 engine very much, especially going into Tekken Tag Tournament 2. So I would like to see something completely new. I would like to see them a retake on the Tekken series, a retake on the Street Fighter series in 3D. I think that could be really freaking cool, especially for the next generation of products. So I don't know, man. It's a little shocking. I highly doubt we're going to see any other Capcom fighting games within that time frame, within that 4-year gap that is now presented to us, with Street Fighter, or with Street Fighter 5 potentially being the next big Capcom fighter. Hopefully what Ayano's saying isn't exactly true, but it does connotate a new dark age of Capcom fighting games. So the reason I mention this now is that I was deeply rooted into Capcom fighting games for a long time, and I didn't play much else besides like Tekken and Guilty Gear back in the day. I urge you guys, there's a lot of stuff available for the public right now, between NetherRealms making games, between Namco making games, Arc System Works, even Microsoft now. All these guys, independent developers like Lab Zero. I encourage you to try other fighting games, because if you get stuck and hung up playing the exact same thing and you get frustrated with it, you will lose interest in the scene sometimes. Like, I've seen this happen with a lot of people where they just get frustrated that they have to play this one single fighting game because it's the popular one. And I encourage you guys to try out some other ones, just because as of right now and looking into the future, dude, especially for guys like me that absolutely love Capcom fighting games, it is looking bleak until 2018. Let me know what you guys think about this recent news in a comment in the comment section below. I'd like to think your perspective as far as like accepting maybe other fighting games for this huge dark age period. It's not a dark age for the fighting game community or a dark age for fighting games. It's just a dark age for Capcom games, which is still a huge freaking bummer. My name is Max, and thank you guys very much for watching.